conscientious manner. Mr. Dow. Oh, actually, I'm going to start that over again. Good morning and welcome to another Friday morning safety meeting. This week's code item of the week is work in an environmentally conscientious manner. Mr. Dow.
Be responsible, be careful, and be diligent. This is trying to get something out of the conscientious because a lot of people are like, what does that mean? Be responsible, careful, and diligent, and do the right thing when it comes to the environment. Try to leave this place in a better place when we're done than when we arrived. How's that?
Perfect. Yep, it's bad for the environment, it's bad for our image, and it's very costly in fines, right?
Yeah.
All right, this week's safety news. We have 9 days without a first aid injury, 134 days without a recordable injury, and 7 days without a vehicle incident. Just another reminder this week to check your buckets, especially with the Wainroys. If they're loose and sloppy, let the shop know. We had a bucket fall off, one of the Wainroy retention system buckets fall off, and it was due to too much slop in the bucket. So try to marry your machines with the correct bucket that's welded on the side of the bucket, and try to make sure to check all your pins and everything in the mornings. And like I said, if you have a lot of slop, it's not just a matter of performance, it's a matter of safety. So anybody have anything to add on that?
Something doesn't look right, say something, whoever it is, especially if you're in the ditch.
Safety shout out this week is Mr. Randy Dow. I was over at the Champlain Parkway this week. I noticed there was a big plume of dust, and I went over to stop things myself. And Mr. Randy Dow had already timed everybody out. They had water already to do some saw cutting, but it didn't quite work right out of the gate. So he timed everybody out, and they figured out the issue before it became a problem. So things aren't always going to start out perfect, but it's taking the pause, getting it corrected, and getting on the right track that counts. So
Good.
this week we're going to talk about blind spots. So last year we talked about blind spots because one of the uniformed traffic officers working for Gurnees, he was standing near the back of a 75 or 85 class excavator, and he was tracked over and killed. So that's why we did this presentation last year. And then this week I saw a couple of people loitering in some blind spots and figured it would be a good reminder to do today. So blind spot is any area where a person's view is obstructed. And then we're going to talk about how that ties into equipment and trucks. So one of the most common things we see on our job sites are dump trucks. So if you look at this chart on here, and if you're not near your iPad or you're watching from afar, it's a good time to come huddle over it, and I'll give you guys a minute to do so. So if you look at these charts, so the white area is what the driver can see, the gray area is blind spot, and the yellow area is mirror view. So as you can see on a dump truck, you have very limited range of view. And it's one of those things you can't fully appreciate it until you sit in a dump truck. So if you've never sat in a dump truck and you're out there on a job site and you have a little bit of slow time, if you ever go ask a truck driver, hey, can I come sit in the truck just to see where your blind spots are? I'm sure they're going to say yes, because they don't want you in their blind spots. So with all this stuff, if you're around any equipment that we show today, I'm hoping that whoever's running that piece of equipment or truck is more than willing to show anybody their blind spots. Next one, it's obviously wintertime, but the mill is still out and about. I'd say this is one of the pieces of equipment that has the weirdest and largest blind spots that we have. We don't work, a lot of guys don't work around these very often, and they're pretty limited in what they can see. This is going to be anything pretty much on the left, right side is going to be blinded out, and correct me if I'm wrong, any of the pavers, it could be the left side, but I think it's the right side's all blinded out, and pretty much anything over the front or back. So make sure that you can see the operator standing on top or standing on the side, and that you're making eye contact with everybody before you approach. Rail equipment has a lot of blind spots. We use a lot of different rail equipment, especially once we get it out on rental. You can have any number number of pieces of equipment that we don't see on a regular basis. Genesee, Wyoming has a 50-foot red zone at minimum, which means any equipment you don't want to get within 50 feet unless you're cleared to do so by the operator. So you can see Mr. Saganowitz here walking up with Ron running the tie puller, and you can see that Ron can clearly see Matt, but do you think Ron can easily see anybody behind him? Probably not. So that's why it's super important before you cross the tracks near where they're working that you're making eye contact with Ron. So, or whoever's running that piece of equipment. More distance may be necessary for some equipment. So if you can't see the operator, you're too close. Make sure that if you're operating the equipment, make sure that your change of direction devices are working. And like I said, if you can't see the operator, they can't see you. Skid steers, we use them all the time and they're kind of small, so we think that they're pretty benign, but in all reality, they have some major blind spot issues. And you can see from this map, this chart, and unfortunately I couldn't get everything on the same type of chart, but the gray areas are the blind spots of this machine. So over the back, especially over the back left shoulder, there's a lot of blind spot area on this is for the cat right here, but over the back, there's a ton of blind spot. And even in the corners and stuff on the front where you might expect that they can see, it's still blinded out. So if you're running the equipment, make sure you're turning your head around as needed. Make sure you're leaning around as needed and that you're really checking your surroundings. If you're working in an area like this guy is in a live substation, it's a good idea and might be required to have a ground guide or a spotter. Loaders actually are pretty solid in terms of their blind spots. Pretty much it's over the back of the loader and then over the front of the bucket. If you have forks on, it even makes that blind spot even smaller, so that's good. But either way, if you're operating, you just need to be using your mirrors, turning your head, and really being diligent in what's around you. It's easy to get into autopilot and flip them into reverse without really looking. And you see it all the time where guys will start to back up a little bit, then they'll stop, and then they'll turn around. So trying to stay in the habit of looking before you change directions. Dozers, I put a chart on here, but it's completely dependent on the dozer. Some dozers are going to have major blind spot issues, like the old 450s. Those things had terrible blind spots. And some equipment just has a lot of glass that you can see around, or if it's ROPS, you have even better visibility, right? But you're always going to have blind spot over the hood. You're going to have blind spot over the back corners, and you're probably going to have some type of blind spot on the side along the door seam. Once again, just moving around in the cab to really make sure you're checking those areas. Excavators, it's going to be dependent on whether they're a zero turn or not. One thing I've noticed when I left ECI, the 75s were really the biggest zero turns that we were using on a regular basis. And then I came back and I sat in what was it, a 335 cat, and the the all the hood came right up to the cab almost. And it's like, man, these things, yeah, they have cameras now, but it really blinds you out. So it's a completely different beast, whether you're running a zero turn or a traditional swing excavator. So just be super mindful of what you're operating. A lot of those guys like Ricky Scandori, he runs a lot of the same equipment every day, and he's still turning around and making sure that he can see everybody around him before he tracks the machine. So it's one of those things where just like the loaders, to stop, think, look before you start tracking these machines. Because if the guys that are the best operators that we have are doing it, then we all should be doing it when we operate them. So haul trucks like what we have, so your articulating haul trucks are going to have blind spots off the left side and the rear, and then there's going to be quite a bit of mirror coverage with these. If you have any broken mirrors or anything like that, it's going to be very important that you contact the shop. Really, with any piece of equipment, contact the shop if you have broken mirrors. Once we get into drills and cranes, it can vary greatly, just like anything else. But if you look at this directional drill on the left side, if that operator goes to start moving that machine, which I doubt he's going to do with his mud hooked up, but if he were to start moving that machine, what can he see? And the answer is pretty much nothing behind him. So the drillers are really good about using ground guides and spotters, but if you're a drill operator, it's just a good reminder to make sure you have one before you're shifting these machines around. And then with cranes, maintain your flagging or rope or whatever you're using to delineate the swing zone. And if you're walking, just make sure that you walk behind, or sorry, walk in a way the operator sees you before you go behind the excavator or behind the crane. And just a reminder, blind spots can be present even in front of the machine. So I think that's down in Lowell, Mass, and that's a 470 or 490 Komatsu up there. And do you think he can see the guys that are working right at the sheeting end of this box? Probably not, and I know not. So you might have to have somebody relaying hand signals up on the handrail before you can really do much down below. So just keep that in mind. The blind spots might be present in places you don't expect. So what you can do if you're an operator or driver is back to our old acronym GOAL, which is get out and look. If you're ever in doubt, it's better to get out and look and take a minute to do that than it is to back or move your piece of equipment or truck without being certain what's around you. You always want to be aware of your surroundings, even when you're stationary. So if you're sitting on a job site and even if you're sitting still and you're on your phone, you're no longer have the situational awareness if you're texting or something like that of what's going on around you. So if you're always kind of keeping your head on a swivel and paying attention to your surroundings and you see somebody kind of walk through the area, okay, now that person's on my radar before I back up. Versus if you're kind of distracting yourself and things like that, then it might be more difficult to see them come in and you might not even know they're there. You want to use your mirrors and cameras, but you should only be using those to verify the presence of a hazard and where it is, but you shouldn't be relying on it to verify the absence of one. So just make sure that we're really mindful of what's around us. And you want to maintain working backup alarms and change of direction devices. So if you're working around equipment or trucks, you always want to wear your high vis. That's part of our uniform. That's why we have it, is so we don't get hit by cars or trucks or anything else. So that's preventing our caught between and are struck by hazards. You don't want to assume that you're seen. So assume like you want to wear high vis clothing, but you want to think like you're wearing all black clothing. Okay. You want to be aware of blind spots on the vehicles and equipment and communicate your intention to enter a blind spot with the driver or the operator. If you can't see them, they can't see you. All right. And make sure that you see their eyes, not just the back of their head. You want to listen for backup alarms and watch for reverse lights. Always be aware of your surroundings and watch out for each other, the public, other contractors, and anybody else. So everybody on your crew might know where all the blind spots are on everything that we just talked about and anything else that you have on your job site. But does the flagger, does the uniform traffic officer, does the person that shouldn't be on the job site that's walking their dog through? And the answer is no, they don't. So if you see something, say something, stop somebody, stop the equipment, whatever you need to do to keep an incident from occurring, because these can be really bad. As a reminder, if you're in doubt about a specific blind spot, just ask the person operating, ask the person driving, that sort of thing. If you're an operator or driver, please, 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 if anybody asks, show them what you're working with. Does anybody have anything to add?
I got a couple things. When you get into production mode, all of us, especially when we're repeating a pattern of baling, digging, baling, moving stuff, snow plowing, running the loader, we create our own blind spots because we get into that zone. Anyone that's operated knows what I'm talking about. And we've all, including myself, had that instance where we've worked 6 hours doing repetitive things, and then we hit that one thing that we knew was there. It kind of, it's almost like we create our own blind spots with this repetitive motion. What I used to do when I was on the crew was I'd kind of break that up a little bit. I'd see somebody getting into that zone, and then all of us around need to look out for that, because it's just an accident waiting to happen. When you approach a machine that someone else is in, especially if they're in that zone, don't get into danger zone until you get some eye contact. And sometimes all it takes with an operator is to kind of break that up, give them a wave, and that can kind of break. You ever see the blank stare when somebody's operating and they got that confused look? When you kind of get in their zone, kind of freaks them out a little bit. You know, get acknowledgement that it's okay to come into the area. That's a good practice, especially for the safety team. Tom, you and Matt, when you come to a job, I think you're good at it, but practice that is don't get into any area where you could be in harm's way until you get some eye contact. And that also breaks that trance that we get in when we're running stuff, that rhythm. Because I know I've damaged a couple of things over the years that I've worked around all night long. I remember hitting a light base one time at the Blue Mall when we were plowing back and forth for like 6 hours, and then bang, you know, and then it's like,
So you have one at the Blue Mall, I have one at the U Mall to claim. So
it happens for utility work too, that monotonous thing. Yeah. Del Gilly worked underneath the telephone line on South Winooski Avenue for 3 days. Donnie Jakes came down, got him flustered, and he took the telephone line down because he was swinging it around to load it on the low bed quick. Took the telephone line down that we worked around for 3 days that had flagged, and it kind of sucked. But yeah, when we get in production mode in the zone, or we can kind of create our own blind spots too. So I don't know. I got a lot of experience in bumping into things. Back in the old days, we learn a lot by making mistakes. So it's gonna happen. But what we don't want to do is ever have someone hurt. So we gotta look out for each other.
Yeah, one addition that seems to work pretty well is two-way radios. We're utilizing them more and more on job sites, and having the operator making sure that they have one.
Yep.
With the ground crew.
Yeah, just breaking up just the communication itself and the acknowledgement.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And just a reminder though, if you're using two-way radios around the 380 excavator, disconnect the bucket quick coupler plug. So
yeah, that's a good thing. The two-way radios interfere with the bucket retention system, correct?
Yeah, correct, on the 380.
Jesus. Okay. Good.
That's something to be mindful of. And if you have any questions on how to prevent that from happening, just reach out to the shop, or I'm sure Adam's up to speed on that as well. So just reach out to somebody.
Thank you, guys. Anything else? Okay. Is my screen showing? You see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So we talked about blind spots. We got a couple of things here. So on Fridays, the HR team, Aaron and Melanie, are going to have and also Veronica and the others are going to have a period of time, kind of like office hours, dedicated to HR related stuff, dedicated to us when we have problems, questions about the ESOP, about our health care, about our beneficiaries, supplemental insurances, and any other support that we need. So from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. every Friday, they're dedicated to not having other appointments and not having other meetings, so that if we either walk in or we plan ahead by calling them, they're going to have that dedicated time every week to help us. Not that being said, any other time that we drop in up in the front office, they're going to accommodate and try to help us with whatever issues we have. And if we can plan ahead, we can set up a meeting anytime during the week. This 2 to 4 p.m. on Fridays is just meant to be just an added focus time for them. That someone will definitely be there if you happen to be at the shop and you want to pop in unannounced. You should be able to get in there and get what you need. So that being said, also we need to still all make sure we have emailed Erin with our personal emails. So the information is here with her email, because a lot of the things moving forward are going to be coming via email to be able to get access to our ESOP information and our ESOP portal. It's all going to be tied to our our personal email. So if we don't have those, we're not going to be able to get everybody onboarded as efficiently. We can always onboard manually up in the front office if we have a problem, and they'll always help us. But we're trying to build that database so that we have everybody's personal information. So if you haven't done so, or if you can't remember, send Aaron an email. The ESOP meetings are going well. We've had one every week, like for the last 3 or 4 weeks. They're generally pretty full with, 10 people, 10 to 13 people max in the conference room. It's good information. It was a little bit lighter this week just because some people were doing the Microsoft projects training and they weren't quite finished yet. So we had a few people push, but we are continuing the ESOP meetings every Friday every Wednesday from 2 to 3. So sign up if you haven't and talk to anyone that's been there, and they'll probably tell you that it was very informative. I have one other thing that I don't know if I didn't prepare anything for this, but we have, and I don't know if Ben McKinney, are you on? We have that GIR in the yard. Is there anything we should say about the yard fuel tank? I forgot to add that in.
Yeah, there's not much. If anybody has any questions, or if you're out there trying to get fuel, you can just I'm here most of the time this time of year. You can just come find me. I can help you out with it. But everybody's socials live. All the asset numbers are live. You still need to do off-road diesel logs and teams like normal, but it's a pretty slick system. Let me know positive or negative feedback about it once you use it.
Thank you, man. I didn't mean to blindside you, but I knew you'd be able to
no problem.
Say something. Yeah. So if anybody has a problem with that, let us come back over to the office and let us know. Don't go without fuel. It's pretty cool to have a slick system. So thanks, man. Okay. Project of the week. Okay, this week we've got water breaks, emergency response. We do have a few photos that we didn't get in there that we got later that Heath will show us. So I'm gonna let Heath take over. I did get an email from Stu King. Whoever remembers Stu King, he was our first safety director here at ECI, and he read our email of the week here, and he sent me this email at like 11 o'clock last night. It says, "There is no company that compares to ECI for dedication to emergency response to state, community, and corporate situations!" Exclamation point. Always on call, always respond, employees who care and serve. Stu. So those of you that remember Stu, he reads our focus of the week every week. And one of the things I'm going to do is have Matt contact him and see if he can come on and we can feature him and have him give us a safety talk one of these weeks. I'm sure he'll do it.
I think we need to all cram upstairs to watch it though, Ben.
Yeah. We'll do it on Teams. But anyway, I'm going to let Heath, I'm going to let you take over, Heath.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Engineers Construction, Inc. provides on-call emergency services to several communities, including, but not limited to, the town of Williston, town of Essex, city of Burlington, city of South Burlington, town of Richmond, and the town of Bolton. ECI is specifically contracted to perform this work with some communities, and others just call us whenever they need help. Our emergency services generally include the repair of waterline breaks, sewer failures, roadway and parking lot sinkholes, storm drainage failures, and flood damage to roads, bridges, and railroad infrastructure. We have featured some of our flood repairs and railroad washouts in past Project of the Week articles. ECI typically receives calls for emergency work during the off hours, with most work occurring in the middle of the night and into the next day. Emergency work, although satisfying and good for business, is hard on employees, and as they end up working unexpected long hours, departing from personal plans, missing out on planned family time, and working in extremely cold conditions. ECI is very fortunate to have highly dedicated employees that answer the calls in the middle of the night and make personal sacrifices to serve our company and the communities that rely on us. The crews do this work without a ton of support from vendors, suppliers, etc., as they are all closed for business at night. ECI maintains a large inventory of parts and pieces for water, sewer, and stormwater pipe repair, and also maintains bins of certain aggregates for backfilling and rebuilding roadway and parking lot subbase. If any of you are interested in getting more involved in emergency work, please contact Adam Piper. We are always looking for more people to help with emergency calls. We would like to give a shout out to the following ECI team members that have recently responded to several emergency off-hour calls. Jesse Lumbra, Greer Peliquin, Bruce Putnam, Joe Prouse, Jaden Waterhouse, Eric Rossier, Zach Hoisington, Jay Gould, and Joey Sumner.
And Brian Harrington, and all the other ones we didn't mention.
And there's lots of people that have gone to emergencies. This is the core group that has gone to several of them during off hours this year in the last 12 months. So these photos are an accumulation of multiple emergency responses, mostly waterline breaks. This first photo is a great example of some of the stuff that you run into. You've got water blasting out of the ground. You've got utilities everywhere that you're trying to work through. It's not usually cut and dry, and there's not a lot of time to figure things out. For that particular one, this was a saddle, so a water service on an AC water line that had broke and just basically completely came off, and water was coming out of the cord hole in the pipe. This is the repair, and if any of you have ever worked with AC pipe, you know that it's very fragile and it breaks easy, and you got to really pay attention to what you're doing with this pipe, especially how you support it and how you backfill it. Here's a good picture of what things look like when we arrive. This one looks like it happened to be during the day, which is not that common. There's water flowing all over the place, and we just a lot of times the water is flowing in the location where the break is not located. So you've got to really try to figure out where the water is coming from and not just where the water is surfacing. In this particular case, it looks like they're digging right where the water is coming out of the ground, which sometimes that works.
Trying to get the pavement. Yeah.
And then when you finally get the hole started, this is what it looks like. There's just, depending on the size of the break, the water just pours in, and dewatering becomes a major effort, and it's not uncommon for it to look just like that. And then when you finally get the water under control and the hole dug, this is that same project where the water is still coming out. We've got a break right here next to the joint, and we've got sump set up and stone in the hole and the excavation made, and now it's time to hopefully depressurize the pipe, which is nice if you can, but sometimes the valves don't work or the communities don't know where their valves are, so that creates a pretty big challenge to get that repaired. Some of these are right in the middle of busy intersections. This is in the middle of a 4-way intersection on North Avenue that we went to recently. And sometimes we work with the communities to do these breaks. And in this case, the city had performed a bunch of the excavation, had set their own manhole box, and had been doing their own pumping. And we went there to help them and relieve them. They had been at this water break for 28 hours when we got there, and they still didn't have the water under control, which you'll see in this picture. This is what we arrived to. They were able to dig down to the pipe. They were able to figure out where the break was, but then they just could not get the water under control, and therefore they couldn't make a repair. And we took it over and pretty quickly got the water under control and made the repair and started backfilling. Here's that same project with, basically we're all prepared to pave at this point. And here are the paving guys out there. Like I said, in the middle of the night, we went all the way to Massachusetts for this asphalt. The city was really wanting to use asphalt as more of a permanent repair, as opposed to using grindings or concrete, which they said if they were going to use concrete, they were going to tear it out in the spring. We did a little math for them and showed them that it was actually cheaper just to put in asphalt from Massachusetts, and so that's what they chose to do. Here's a supposed break in the town of Williston, where they had sewer surfacing, and we dug and dug and dug, and we didn't find any break anywhere, and so it's unclear what the issue was or why they believe they had a problem, but we searched and searched and didn't find anything and backfilled, and then we never heard another thing about it. That happens sometimes. Here's another one in a parking lot. I think this is at Odell. All of a sudden, all this water just starts boiling out of the ground, and the sinkholes develop. And this is a very busy area. This parking lot's usually completely full of vehicles. They were quite panicked, and we went over there and helped them. And they were so appreciative. They brought us over a platter of edible fruits and chocolates and stuff, and those were in the dispatch room. And hopefully some of the people that actually went to that break got some of those. This is a cool picture. This is a very deep repair. You can see here that ladder's extended out. We've got probably BP wastewater or P&P with their hydrovac system trying to, get down to the pipe where the break is located, and those guys are down there trying to perform the repair.
Wow.
So before we go to the
Yeah.
before we go to
You
the
have a couple other
archives,
photos, don't you, Heath?
yeah, can everybody see this? So this is not uncommon to, dig down and find something like this.
Holy cow. Yep.
And if the municipality is able to turn the water off, obviously that's not a huge problem, but it seems more often than not that they're not able to do that because their valves haven't been exercised, or they don't know where their valves are, or there's a cross connection that they're not aware of. And so, our team is at that point, has to figure out how to fix it under pressure, which is very challenging. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Dow, for your archive photo.
Yes. Hold on. I'm just gonna switch over here.
You want me to stop sharing?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? So this is Michael Colby, 2003 North Loop water break, and there were 3 of us that responded to that, and that's the conditions that we arrived in. That just shows conditions aren't always favorable for a water break. You see that okay? That's Mike. And then there we are getting the box in and getting going. Pretty nasty night. I found another one in 2010. This was a fire main break at 963. This is the one that stimulated Stu's call because I think he was around then. But this was a major blowout. Look at the size of that line, and we ended up having to put multiple fittings in there, as you can see, to get around that corner and put it all back together. That's a lot of parts. 1, 2, 3, several mechanical 45, a couple 45s, and some mega lugs, and that was quite a beast. So I do get out in the field. I did get out in the field once in a while in the old days, especially when stuff like this happened. So, but that was the one that Stu King remembered, and he emailed that thing for us. So that's all I have. I'll turn it back over to Tom.
Yeah, have a great day. Have a safe day. Have an awesome weekend. And if you watch in a group setting, please send me your attendance or send it to Matt, please.
Perfect. Thank you.